and His Excellency Hiroshi Oka, Embassy of Japan. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the national anthem, Negaraku. All guests, please be seated. His Excellency Hiroshi Oka, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary Embassy of Japan, Honorable Professor Emeritus Tan Sri Datuk Zulkifli Abdul Razak, Rector of the International Islamic University Malaysia, and Puan Sri Datin Masra Abidin, Yang berbahagia Dr. Rosfa Hashim, Director IIUM Press, and Puan Ramlah Abdul Rashid, Hajjah Sarifah Abdullah, IIUM Chief Librarian, Honorable invited guests, University Management Committee members, delegation from Sokagakai, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh, and very good morning. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, praise be to Allah, the cherisher and sustainer of the worlds, and blessings be on our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family and his companions. It is indeed a great honor to welcome all to the Darul Hikmah Library IIUM Gombak campus for the book talk and book launch ceremony, Science untuk Manusia and the Ashes of Hiroshima, and opening ceremony of exhibition on book, writing and publishing the collection of Rosfa Hashim. First and foremost, we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to His Excellency Hiroshi Oka, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary Embassy of Japan, and of course to our beloved Rector of IIUM to be with us here today. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to gain barakah of today's auspicious occasion, I now call upon Dr. Yusuf Nasir, IIUM Press Office, to recite the dua. فليتفضل مأجورا.
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه أصبحنا وأصبح الملك لله الواحد القهار اللهم إنا نسألك خير هذا اليوم وخير ما فيه وخير ما بعده ونعوذ بك من شر هذا اليوم وشر ما فيه وشر ما بعده. اللهم ارزقنا فيه وبه ومنه وبارك لنا فيه وارزقنا خيرا منه فأنت الرزاق ذو القوة المتين. ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وعلمنا من لدنك علما. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم ألهمنا علما نفقه به أوامرك ونواهيك، وارزقنا فهما نعرف به كيف نناجيك. اللهم ارزقنا فهم النبيين وحفظ المرسلين وإلهام الملائكة المقربين. اللهم اغننا بالعلم وزينا بالحلم وأكرمنا بالتقوى وجملنا بالمعرفة. اللهم إنا نسألك كمال فتوح العارفين والفقه في الدين مع كمال الإخلاص والصدق واليقين. اللهم اجعل جمعنا هذا جمعا مرحوما وتفرقنا من بعده تفرقا محصوما، ولا تجعل فينا يا ربنا شقيا ولا محروما. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وصل اللهم وسلم على سيدنا محمد النبي العربي الأمي الصادق الأمين وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه الغر الميامين ومن أتبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين، والحمد لله رب العالمين. آمين آمين آمين.
Amin ya Rabbal Alamin. Jazakallahu khairan kathira. Dr. Yusuf Nasir from IIUM Press Office for the door. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to kick off our event, I would like now to call upon Yang Berbahagia Dr. Rosfa Hashim, Director IIUM Press, to deliver his welcoming remarks. Please welcome.
Thank you, Brother Johari. Yang berbahagia Profesor Emeritus Tan Sri Datuk Zulkifli Abdul Razak, Director of International Islamic University Malaysia, and yang berbahagia Puan Sri Datin Masrah Abidin, His Excellency Hiroshi Oka, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary Embassy of Japan, yang berbahagia Mr. Michael Kok Fu-on, President of Soka Gakkai Malaysia, Puan Fadila Osman, the daughter of Debu Hiroshima, respected University Management Committee, representative from Soka Gakkai Malaysia, deans, directors, distinguished guests, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning. First and foremost, we are grateful to our Almighty for the blessing that we are able to present here today as countries around the world are facing an unprecedented pandemic, COVID-19. On behalf of IIUM Press and Darul Hikmah Library, I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you to our event this morning. And I know most of you have other more important things to do, but have chosen to be with us this morning. Therefore, we greatly appreciate your presence at our event today. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, the ceremony was held today in conjunction with the 75th anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan. Hopefully, our gathering today can make us aware of the suffering of war victims 75 years ago. I also extended my deepest sympathy to those still suffering from the after effect of the atomic bomb even now. Today, we will have conducted some sessions. First, we will have a lecture from Professor Dr. Kamarul Nizam Abdullah from University Utara Malaysia on World Peace Awareness. He will take us to reflect on historical events that took place 75 years ago. need to learn from what happened in 1945. After that, we will listen to a book talk session on the two books that we're going to launch this morning. The first one, The Ashes of Hiroshima, and the second, Science untuk Manusia. This is, to me, a very good combination. Both of these books are very important. The first book, The Ashes of Hiroshima, is a translated version of the book Hiroshima, is very relevant to today's date. The importance of the book is clear from the theme, the message it conveys, and its main characters. The second book contains the debates linking the various scientific issues facing humanity today. The detailed contents of both books will be discussed by the panel members we have invited. We are proud to have three important people who will discuss two books that will be launched today by Tan Sri Professor Emeritus Zulkifli Abdul Razak. And let me briefly introduce our panel members that we're going to talk about the book. First, Mr. Muhammad Khair Ngadirun is from the National Book Council of Malaysia, MBKM. He is also a former IIUM lecturer and a former CEO of Malaysian Institute of Translation and Books, ITBM. As such, he has extensive experience in the book industry in this country. The second speaker, the second panel, Dr. Muhammad Salih Rahmat from the National Writers Association of Malaysia, or PENA, and he is also a former journalist from at Karangkraf and is currently lecturer at the Department of Media Studies, University of Malaya. And the third speaker is Mr. Faisal Aziz from Institute Kejuruteraan Mikro dan Nanoelektronik, IMEN, UKM. He is also the important man, backbone of Majalah Science. Science magazine published in Malay. We will also later be able to hear a speech from His Excellency Hiroshi Oka from the Embassy of Japan in Kuala Lumpur. He will talk about 75 years after Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed on August 6, 1945. From his speech, we hope we can understand the bitter experiences of the people of these two cities in Japan. And we will all have the opportunity to see the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombing exhibition provided by Soka Gakkai Malaysia. So we must thank Soka Gakkai Malaysia. Apart from that, Professor Zulkifli will also launch an exhibition of books in my personal collection that I have donated to the IIUM library. This collection specifically contains titles around the field of books. The topic of these books are about book publishing, book marketing, bookshop, laws and ethics of book publishing, book design, reading habits, book clubs and libraries, writing method, writing style, publishing style, as well as some other aspects around the book industry that I've collected for the past 30 years. This process of handing over of the books in my collection is still ongoing. After this, I will donate another area of my interest, biographical books, autobiographies, memoirs, and travelogues. In this group of books, there are the following figures: Malay nationalists, Malay leftists, artists, army and police, journalists and writers, Rasulullah and his companions, and the world figures. Hopefully, inshallah, at the end of the year, we will turn another book exhibition on these genres. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, our event today is also part of IIUM Press involvement in welcoming Kuala Lumpur status as the World Book Capital 2020, or WBC 2020. We have planned several events to support this KL new status, KL WBC 2020. Inshallah, on 27 August this month, we will launch the translation book project that is being worked on, and the event actually was planned in advance but was delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I would like to express my gratitude to all those who helped us make our event a success today. Those who helped us included Tan Sri Professor Emeritus Lutfi Abdul Razak, Director of IIUM, His Excellency Hiroshi Oka from the Embassy of Japan in Kuala Lumpur, Cik Sharifah Abdullah, the IIUM Chief Librarian and her officers, Professor Kamaluddin Nizam Abdullah from UUM, all the book top panelists, Puan Wardati from Dewan Bahasa Pusaka, who helped us publish the English version of the novel Debu Hiroshima, Puan Rosidah from Perpustakaan Kuala Lumpur, Majalah Sains.com, Puan Atika Halim, the translator of the book Debu Hiroshima, our printers, Reka Cetak and Alamedia, Mr. Michael Ko On and from Sokaga KM Malaysia, and IIUM press staff, and also all those who helped us make this event success, but their names I did not mention here. Finally, I hope our event today will benefit all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rosfa Hashim, for the welcoming remarks. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, moving on, I would like to direct your attention to the screen for a video presentation on the World Peace Awareness by Professor Dr. Kamarul Nizam Abdullah from School of International Studies, University Utara Malaysia, UUM.
The Honorable Professor Emeritus Tan Sri Datuk Sri Zulkifli Abdul Razak, Rector International Islamic University of Malaysia, His Excellency Mr. Hiroshi Oka, the Japanese Ambassador to Malaysia, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to organizing committee, in particular, and the International Islamic University of Malaysia in general, for giving me an opportunity to deliver an address speech on World Peace Awareness, especially on the subject of remembering Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings. Let me take the issue from the international relation perspective. We cannot talk about world peace without looking back at the history that nearly destroyed humankind. Hiroshima and Nagasaki nuclear bombings are points in reference. When nuclear bombs were dropped by the United States over the city of Hiroshima on August 6, 1945, and 3 days later on Nagasaki, it has been a major strategic and political consequences to not only the international security environment, but also a political rivalry among two superpowers during that time, i.e. the United States and the Soviet Union. This was the era where concepts such as nuclear deterrence, mutual assured destruction or MAD, weapons of mass destructions, WMD, were famously quoted among policymakers and the academia. It marks in the world history, first time ever, that WMD were used in major wars. Secondly, it also marks the beginning of the nuclear arm races among major powers. Luckily, the world was on a great relief when the two superpowers, United States and Soviet Union, agreed to pull a brakes by signing various agreements such as the Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, the Strategic Arm Limitation Agreement, or SALT I and SALT II, the Anti-Ballistic Missiles Treaty, ABM, or Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, or CTBT. But unfortunately, the agreements, for me, did not compel others to follow suit. There are other countries that refuse to sign and even withdraw from to sign the NPT agreement due to their strategic and national interests. One immediate question raised by many critics was, is it necessary to use nuclear weapons to end the war as soon as possible? The traditionalists argue that the bombs were necessary steps to force Japan to surrender. They argue that the land invasion of Japan by the American and Soviet forces would have taken more time and life than the bombs did. Yet the revisionists argue that the bombing could be avoided, if not because the American was too obsessed of having the technology ahead of its competitors, namely the Soviet Union and the German. It was argued that Japan was more compelled to surrender after the Soviet invasion of Manchuria in August 1945. Even Japanese messages intercepted by United States military intelligence indicating that the Japanese had been trying to surrender conditionally since June 1945. But the desire to avenge Pearl Harbor and the ghastly treatment of American prisoners of war had overridden the desire to end the war peacefully. Furthermore, a scholar named Shermy argues that Truman administration was having a choice. It was said publicly that his motivation to end the war as quickly as possible was to save the American lives. But we miss another salient idea here, which basically was discussed among the political elites in Washington, D.C. during that time, that the choice was also rested on Americans' wartime strategic decisions to control Joseph Stalin's post-war ambitions. The American, it was argued that, was actually wanted to prove its superior military capacity to the Soviet Union and was determined to use the atomic bombs for that purpose. It was also believed that Soviet Union was in the midst of developing nuclear capability due to the Kremlin's own intelligence information that Germans was also having that kind of technology. The Truman administration also hopes that the bombs would curb Stalin's ambitions in Eastern Europe and in the Far East. American officials calculated that by using the atomic bomb would enormously bolster American diplomacy vis-a-vis the Soviet Union in negotiation over both post-Cold War Europe and the Far East. At the same time, the pressure on senior Manhattan Project administrators was mounting to justify the money, materials, and talent spent to build the atomic bombs. Finally, it was argued that the decision was also based on the American belief that had Soviet entered the Pacific War against Japan, other Western allies were anxious that they would not gain any geopolitical territory in resource-rich Asia as they had done in Europe. The history has also shown us that the wartime alliance between the American and the Soviet Union soon dissolved into intense rivalry, which continued to influence global relations within 7 decades. By 1948, the Soviet Union had tested its first atomic bomb. As a result, fear and distrust in international relations had become so entrenched, and the world was then forced to live under the shadow of mutually assured destructions. What are the lessons learned, and how could we sustain world peace without nuclear? What I can say that the world is hardly learning from these disastrous episodes. The atomic bomb of Japan was hugely significant final act of the most destructive global conflict in human history. Simultaneously, it signaled the dawn of atomic age, the arms race between the American and the between 6,000 and 80,000 people were killed instantly when the bomb detonated over Hiroshima, and estimated 140,000 died from acute effects of the bomb before the end of the year. The death toll increased to over 200,000 people in subsequent decades as people died from cancer and other diseases linked to radiation poisoning. Nuclear weapons are depicted as so inhumane as to justify global prohibition of their productions, retention, or use. Any future nuclear weapon is predicted to have far more severe humanitarian and environmental consequences than the 1945 strikes on Japan. It has been argued that NPT regimes faced with a period of uncertainty. North Korea, India, Pakistan, Iran left the treaty. Another attempt has been mounted. The world community, through the United Nations, introduced another legal binding treaty called the Treaty of the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. States that wish to become parties to the treaty must commit to the total elimination of nuclear weapons. The text of the treaty was adopted by 122 countries in 1917. As today, only 16 states have signed the treaty, and of those, 13 have ratified it. 37 more ratifications are needed to make the treaty binding. Unfortunately, none of the 9 nuclear power countries, United States, Russia, United Kingdom, France, China, India, Pakistan, Israel, and North Korea, support the total ban. It also should be highlighted that global nuclear weapons stockpile still stands at over 14,000 warheads, despite decades of disarmament efforts. 90% of these weapons are held by the Americans and the Russians. What can I say? That we have a long way to go for a sustainable world peace with the world free of nuclear weapons, given that world is also facing with another pressing security threats like the current pandemics. It is hard to persuade some nation states to let it go, but there is also hope that if we come together to reject it and teach our future generations the ugly side of nuclear weapons, I believe that we can still achieve the world peace. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Walaikum salam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, now let's move to one of our main agenda, which is book talk entitled Science untuk Manusia and the Ashes of Hiroshima. And this session which will be conducted in Malay. And without further delay, I would like now to invite Yang Berbahagia Encik Muhammad Khair Ngadirun, Director, Malaysia National Book Council, MBKM, as a moderator, and also most welcome to the stage our panelists, Yang Berbahagia Dr. Muhammad Saleh Rahmat from University Malaya, and Encik Muhammad Faizal Aziz from editor majalahsains.com. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I pass the session to the moderator, yang berbahagia Encik Muhammad Khair Ngadirun.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good morning, Mr. Master of Ceremony, all the guests, Tan Sri, and Your Excellency, and all. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, salam sejahtera. Allow me to use national language as a medium for this morning forum. Okay. I was informed by Dr. Osfa that we will use bahasa Melayu. Okay? Okay. Baiklah, terima kasih semua. Tegang sikit pagi ni. Yelah, kita nak cerita pasal debu Hiroshima kan. Tak boleh nak. Tapi bersama kita dua orang pakar. Saya boleh katakan pakar lah. Apa yang kita nak buat pagi ni adalah perbincangan tentang dua buku ni. Buku ni dijual ke? Kat luar? Okey, buku ni dijual. Satu buku Sains untuk Manusia, tulisan Zulkifli Abdul Razak. Satu lagi buku dalam bahasa Inggeris, The Ashes of Hiroshima, tulisan Osman Putih tentang Cikgu Abdul Razak. Okey. Ada dua panelis yang akan membincangkan perkara ni. Apa yang saya nak buat sekarang ialah saya patut berhenti pada 11.20. Saya ikut jadual. Okey, saya berhenti pukul 11.20. Kita ada lebih kurang 50 minit. 40 minit untuk berbincang. Saya akan beri waktu untuk ahli panel bercakap tentang buku yang mereka nak kupas. Saudara Faizal, pegawai sains daripada UKM. Tadi telah diterangkan siapa beliau oleh Dr. Oswa. Saya tak perlu perkenalkan beliau. Beliau juga bukan ketua editor untuk majalahsains.com. Kerja yang dibuat di luar rangka kerja beliau, dia akan mengulas tentang sains untuk manusia, dan juga Dr. Saleh Ahmad yang akan mengulas tentang The Ashes of Hiroshima. Saya akan berikan masing-masing 15 minit untuk bercerita sebelum saya buka kepada apa-apa pertanyaan tentang buku ni. Jadi kita mulakan dengan Saudara Faizal tentang buku Sains untuk Manusia. Silakan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terlebih dahulu saya ingin mengucapkan banyak jutaan terima kasih kepada pihak penerbit UIAM yang sudi menerbitkan bersama kerjasama antara portal Majalah Sains dan IIUM Press. Sebelum saya cerita lebih lanjut tentang buku ini, saya ingin menceritakan sedikit tentang sejarah bagaimana tiba-tiba Majalah Sains terlibat dalam penerbitan buku yang saya kira buku yang sangat menarik dan sangat hebat untuk tahun 2020 lah. Okey, Majalah Sains ditubuhkan lebih kurang 11 tahun yang dulu. Kami menumpukan kepada penerbitan rencana sains untuk bacaan orang awam, untuk sesiapa saja yang membaca. Target kami adalah sesiapa saja yang mengunjungi Majalah Sains dan melihat artikel-artikel di sana. Dia tak ada artikel yang teknikal, dia hanya untuk bacaan orang-orang awam. Jadi selama mana saya mewujudkan Majalah Sains itu, terdetik di hati saya untuk mencari, untuk mendapatkan penulis-penulis atau pemikir atau saintis, pensyarah yang prolific, yang menulis, yang menyebarkan ilmu pengetahuan dalam bahasa ibunda kita. Sebab sains dalam bahasa Melayu sekarang semakin lama semakin nak kata pupus belum pupus, tapi semakin menurun. Dan usaha-usaha ini adalah untuk mengembalikan kegemilangan sains dalam bahasa Melayu yang pernah kita capai suatu masa dulu tahun 80-an melalui penerbitan rancangan TV dan sebagainya. Jadi pada tahun 2017, salah seorang sahabat saya, Dr. Rusdiadi, dia tak dapat datang ini. Dialah orang yang bertanggung jawab menghubungi Tan Sri untuk menawarkan kolom. Dan kita lantik Tan Sri sebagai kolumnis majalah Sains. So dari situ, dari tahun 2017 hingga sekarang, Tan Sri adalah kolumnis bulanan lah saya kira. Bulanan majalah Sains, dan beliau melontarkan pandangan-pandangan beliau yang saya kira sangat, ya dia isu yang telah lama tapi jarang diikuti oleh masyarakat pada masa hari ini, iaitu untuk menyeimbangkan antara sains dan kemanusiaan. Sains sekarang dilihat terlalu dogmatik, terlalu instrumental, terlalu di awang-awangan, orang kata, tidak berpijak di bumi yang nyata. Walaupun ada argument, ada perbahasan yang banyak di situ. Tapi saya kira tulisan Tan Sri ini membongkar semula, ataupun boleh dikatakan sebagai mengajak semula masyarakat menilai ciri-ciri keinsanan atau keseimbangan tujuan manusia itu turun ke bumi ini untuk memakmurkan bumi. Sebab sains atau teknologi yang kelihatan daripada barat itu sebenarnya sebenarnya yang selepas zaman pencerahan, zaman Renaissance dulu, dilihat agak sekular dan tidak menyentuh soal-soal keinsanan. Jadi Tan Sri memulakan artikelnya pada tahun 2017 yang pertama menyentuh tentang revolusi industri keempat, ataupun kita ringkaskan sebagai RI4 lah. Dalam RI4 ini sendiri, pada chapter pertama itu Tan Sri telah mengupas tentang kegairahan masyarakat ataupun para teknologis, ahli akademik, pemimpin, keseluruhannya ialah masyarakat tentang penerimaan konsep IR4 atau konsep RI4 yang tidak menyentuh isu-isu keinsanan. Untuk makluman, RI4 ini adalah kesinambungan daripada revolusi industri yang ketiga, dan sebelum itu revolusi industri kedua dan yang pertama. Yang pertama berlaku pada abad ke-18, iaitu revolusi kewujudan teknologi warp steam untuk menggerakkan mesin apa semua. Revolusi industri kedua menjurus kepada kewujudan penemuan tenaga elektrik. Penemuan elektrik ini pula membawa kepada revolusi ketiga, iaitu menggerakkan segala jentera. Revolusi kedua, electricity ini menggerakkan segala mesin, dan yang ketiga revolusi digital, komputer, penciptaan microprocessor untuk komputer dan internet. Dan apabila masuk kepada revolusi RI4 yang disebut pada tahun 2016 di World Economic Forum, pertama kali disebut pada masa itu, dia menjurus kepada internet ataupun teknologi perkomputeran ini yang dihubungkan dengan manusia. Maka tercetuslah artificial intelligence, internet of things, internet pelbagai benda, yang semua sekarang ni dipelopori oleh seluruh pusat penyelidikan di seluruh dunia, termasuk kita di Malaysia ini, tanpa kita sedar bahawa revolusi RI4 ini sebenarnya sudah melampaui apa yang kita panggil keseimbangan masyarakat. Contoh yang saya bagi juga disebutkan oleh Tan Sri dalam buku ini, di revolusi kedua dahulu pun telah ada revolusi kedua ialah elektrik. Tapi sampai sekarang revolusi kedua itu belum merata ke keseluruhan dunia pun. Even di Malaysia ada tempat-tempat yang belum dapat elektrik. Jadi adakah kita sampai ke RI4 ini kita lupa bahawa kita sebenarnya sains yang mendominasi dunia pada masa hari ini telah meninggalkan sifat-sifat, telah meninggalkan orang kata sifat-sifat humanis, kemanusiaan itu sendiri. Jadi Tan Sri menulis panjang dalam buku ini. Setiap satu bab saya baca dengan teliti, sangat menarik, sangat mencabar minda. Seolah-olah Tan Sri ini tidak, kalau boleh saya katakan, terlalu kritis dengan apa yang dibawa oleh Barat. Sangat kritis. Tidak menerima bulat-bulat apa istilah RI4 ataupun banyaklah istilah-istilah yang agak asing bagi kita. Tapi di satu kelompok lagi mereka menerima dengan gembira, meraihkan kemajuan ini dengan tanpa memikirkan apa yang berlaku di sebaliknya. Dengan kemunculan buku ini, saya rasa sangat bertuah juga apabila ia sangat kena dengan kami punya tema di majalah sains, iaitu sains dan teknologi untuk masyarakat. Itu apa yang saya fikirkan sebelum saya mulakan projek majalah sains hampir lebih 10 tahun dulu. Boleh?
Terima kasih. Saya hayal dengar sampai terpesona dengan cerita sains kita. Okay. Sahabat saya Jebat cakap saya jadi moderator yang cakap banyak-banyak. Saya terima sebab dia kawan saya sejak zaman saya belajar dulu. Dia tahu kalau saya dapat mikrofon saya akan tak berhenti bercakap. Jadi saya cuba. Sekarang kita nak beralih pula. Tadi kita cakap soal sains, fakta, dan saya meneliti sebab Dr. Osfar beri saya buku ni 4 hari yang lalu. Saya baca semua dan saya nampak memang Tan Sri Zul ni dia melawan arus. Pemikiran dia, orang jalan ke sini, dia tengok jalan ke sana. Itu yang kita kena lihat. Dan saya fikir dalam kehidupan kita ni, kita kena lihat perspektif yang berbeza. Dan Tan Sri memberi perspektif begitu. Cuma sekarang kita nak berubah sikit. Sebab zaman sains ni juga, kita selalu ketinggalan soal humanisme. Humanisme ni selalunya akan berasaskan kepada buku-buku yang coraknya sastra. Dan ini banyak ditinggalkan. Sebab tu melihat Hiroshima contohnya, bagaimana sains menghancur leburkan bandar, bagaimana sains telah menghilangkan nilai kemanusiaan, dan kita beralih arah pula kepada cerita yang berlaku bagaimana sains merosakkan sebuah bandar dan bagaimana ada manusia yang hidup, survive dalam keadaan tersebut, dan orang itulah orang daripada Malaysia. Dan buku Debu Hiroshima ini atau The Ashes of Hiroshima ini ditulis dalam bentuk novel. Saya minta Dr. Saleh lah untuk bercerita tentang buku ni. Silakan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih saudara Khair. Ya bahagia Tan Sri Zulkifli Abdul Razak, Mr. Hiroshi Oka, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang dihormati sekalian. Ini novel. Kalau kita melihat dari perspektif sastra. Tetapi kalau kita melihat dari perspektif kewartawanan, dia sudah menjadi new journalism. Sekarang saya melihat dari perspektif sastra kerana diterbitkan atas kapasiti novel oleh Dewan Bahasa dan Pustaka pada tahun 1987. Dan watak utama dalam novel Debu Hiroshima ini ialah ayahanda kepada Tan Sri Zulkifli sendiri. Beliau yang dipanggil Razak Sensei ya, merupakan satu-satunya rakyat Malaysia yang terselamat dalam tragedi bom atom di Hiroshima ketika beliau belajar di sana. Jadi beliau telah meninggal pada tahun 2013 ya Tan Sri. Jadi kita sedekahkan Al-Fatihah kepada arwah Al-Fatihah.
Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, novel ini berdasarkan fakta dan diolah secara kreatif. Maka dikategorikan sebagai fiction, fakta campur fiction. Atau subkategorinya dalam novel macam-macam nama. Ada yang disebut dalam bahasa Jermannya Bildungsroman, Perancisnya Roman à clef, apprentice novel, ataupun novel biografi pun boleh. Tentang seorang watak, seorang tokoh yang real, bukan tokoh fiction, bukan tokoh rekaan. Sebenarnya karya sebegini bukan asing di Malaysia. Ya, tahun 1958 Harun Aminur Rashid sudah pun menulis Panglima Awang, seorang tokoh yang mengelilingi dunia, yang dikatakan dialah sebenarnya pengeliling dunia yang pertama, bukannya Magellan. Kerana dia mengikut Magellan, Magellan mati di Filipina dan dia meneruskan pelayaran pulang ke Melaka. Penulisan novel berdasarkan tokoh ini merupakan satu kaedah untuk mengangkat semangat yang dibawa oleh tokoh tersebut. Jadi dalam konteks ini, Cikgu Razak, ya, pensyarah bahasa Jepun, sebelumnya menjadi guru dan pergi ke Jepun, dia dibawa oleh kerajaan Jepun pada tahun 1943, dan pada tahun 1945 ketika mereka berada di Hiroshima, bom atom meletup. Dan beliau bersama beberapa rakannya termasuk dari Indonesia dan Brunei telah mengalami detik-detik yang sangat mencemaskan untuk hidup dalam tempoh sehari dua itu sebelum dapat diselamatkan. Kalau kita membaca novel ini dari sudut sastra, barangkali kita akan tak boleh sampailah kerana ini untuk bacaan remaja. Tetapi kita letakkan sebagai seorang yang hendak mencari fakta, hendak mencari sesuatu yang tidak ada dalam catatan lain. Tidak ada, kerana ini bukan catatan sejarah tetapi catatan peribadi. Jadi kalau tuan-tuan nak mengetahuinya, perlu membeli buku ini di luar sana dan dapatkan tanda tangan di Tan Sri Zul. Rospa ya? Promosi 10% kepada saya. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, tadi saya katakan bahawa novel ini termasuk dalam kategori fiction. Kalau dari sudut kewartanan kita sebut sebagai new journalism, yellow journalism, gonzo journalism. New journalism ini merupakan satu kaedah penulisan kewartawanan yang hasil daripada ketidakpuasan para wartawan semasa perang di Vietnam. Apabila Pentagon telah menapis semua berita dalam bentuk kewartawanan lama, semuanya mesti berasaskan sumber dan ditetapkan framing yang sudah ada, maka wartawan-wartawan yang ikhlas dan jujur ini merasakan itu tidak memuaskan hati mereka. Mereka melahirkan satu bentuk penulisan yang menggunakan teknik penulisan kreatif, menggunakan kaedah monolog, kaedah emosi dan sebagainya. Menjadilah karya-karya yang sangat membekas, tetapi dalam keadaan yang tertentu tetaplah ada kelemahannya kerana kita tak dapat pastikan sumber daripada mana dan sebagainya, ya. Tapi kita lupakan itu. Okey. Kalau kita membaca novel, ada 3 perkara yang menjadi asas penulisan, faktor penulisan, iaitu karya sastra itu ditulis sama ada untuk to portray, ya, untuk menggambarkan zaman. Yang kedua, untuk mendidik, to educate. Yang ketiga, to amuse, untuk menghibur. Yang pertama kita tengok, untuk menggambarkan zaman, menggambarkan tragedi, menggambarkan pengalaman, bagaimana mereka berdepan dengan keadaan yang sangat mencemaskan itu, dalam runtuhan bangunan, dalam mencari air untuk minum, menyelamatkan mangsa-mangsa yang sedang kehausan. Mereka telah memberikan air dari sungai, tetapi air itu jugalah yang membunuh mangsa yang sedang kehausan, kerana air itu sudah tercemar oleh radiasi. Ini satu keadaan yang sangat menyedihkan. Mereka menjadi pembunuh tanpa sedar, dengan hasrat yang murni untuk menyelamatkan. Ini seolah-olah euthanasia itulah, ya, pembunuhan mesti keliling, tapi mereka tidak ada niat untuk membunuh. Jadi kita dapat maklumat daripada situ, daripada buku ini. Yang kedua, novel itu biasanya ditulis untuk mendidik. Apakah nilai didikan yang terkandung dalam buku ini? Pertama, tentulah nilai murni, wataknya watak yang baik. Apabila ditulis secara authorized novel, authorized biografi misalnya, mesti mendapat restu daripada watak tokoh. Dan Osman Putih merupakan seorang tokoh penulis remaja pada tahun 80-an, 90-an sehingga meninggalnya beliau ya. Beliau ini merupakan tokoh jadi pakar rujuk sastra remaja di Malaysia dan beliau telah menemui arwah Allahyarham Cikgu Razak dan mendapatkan ceritanya yang sebenar. Maka karyanya itu mestilah dianggap sebagai authorized novel yang telah direstui maksudnya ya. Maka tentulah yang ditulisnya itu yang baik-baik sahaja. Apatah lagi ditulis oleh seorang pensyarah yang baik dan ditulis untuk para pembaca remaja. Maka pembaca remaja perlu diberi didikan melalui karya sastra, bukan seperti karya-karya yang sangat terbuka sifatnya sebagaimana karya-karya yang di barat maupun karya-karya tempatan pada tahun 60-an begitu banyak dan sekarang pun ada ya, unsur-unsur lucah dan sebagainya ada, tapi karya remaja sangat terjaga. Maka nilai didikannya ada di situ dan nilai didikan seorang manusia yang sangat prihatin, yang sangat manusiawi dapat kita lihat pada pribadi watak Cikgu Razak ini. Mereka mencari guru-guru mereka yang tertimbus di bawah runtuhan. Guru-guru berbangsa Jepun itu diselamatkan dengan penuh susah payah. Itu nilai murni. Tapi yang paling utama yang saya lihat sebagai manusia yang mendapat budi daripada kerajaan Jepun, Jepun ini timur, Malaysia ini timur. Maka wacana ketimuran itu jelas kelihatan. Kalau kita nak sebut sebagai apabila mereka melihat barat daripada perspektif timur, itu melahirkan satu wacana yang disebut sebagai wacana Occidentalism. Occidentalism discourse. Lawan kepada Orientalism. Kalau dalam Orientalism, bagaimana orang barat melihat timur dengan penuh biasnya, ya, dengan niat dominatifnya, sebagaimana Edward Said katakan dalam bukunya Orientalism itu. Tetapi dalam buku ini ditulis oleh pengarang timur tentang watak timur dan watak-watak Malaysia itu mendapat budi baik daripada kerajaan Jepun, menuntut pelajaran, menuntut ilmu di Jepun, maka tentulah pandangan yang baik dilemparkan terhadap Jepun. Maka itu yang kita lihat, bagaimana dialog-dialog itu sebenarnya menggambarkan wacana Occidentalism. Apabila mereka mengecam, mereka mengkritik tindakan kejam tentera pesawat udara Amerika itu menggugurkan bom atom di Hiroshima. Ada saya masukkan, sebenarnya saya ada tulis siap pagi tadi pun. Malam tadi saya tak lena tidur, batuk. Saya risau saya batuk di pentas ni, kalau batuk maafkan saya. Ada pada halaman 37 itu ada dialog contoh ya. Amerika beri amaran Jepun akan musnah. Jepun akan hancur lebur jika tak segera menyerah, jelas Pangeran Yusuf. Ini dah mengugut, ulas Said Omar. Angkuhnya, kata Nik Yusuf. Gertak saja tak, gurau Nik Yusuf. Entahlah, semua boleh jadi. Ini contoh, banyak lagi ya petikan yang boleh kita lihat sebagai paparan Occidentalism itu. Melihat barat itu watak hitam, antagonis. Dan mereka ini berada di pihak timur, berada dalam wilayah protagonis. Dan ini merupakan suatu wacana yang sangat penting dalam mendidik pribadi, mendidik sahsiah pembaca remaja dalam kita menempuh era globalisasi. Apabila kita nak berdepan dengan wacana-wacana dari barat, kita terpaksa berhati-hati. Sebagaimana kata Edward Said sendiri, kita perlu membaca karya-karya barat itu secara contrapuntal reading. Membaca secara berhati-hati dan kritis. Dan ini karya sastra. Karya sastra merupakan alat untuk senjata budaya melawan serangan budaya. Sebagaimana api melawan api, maka budaya melawan budaya. Kita tidak boleh mengutuk, mencerca barat, tapi tidak ada alternatifnya. Maka sastra ini perlu dilahirkan dan telah dilahirkan oleh Osman Putih menggunakan bahan yang otentik, bahan yang benar, yang real dan lebih diyakini kebenarannya itu. Dan yang ketiga, bagaimana untuk menghibur, ini kaedah biasalah. Apabila novel dihasilkan, tidak seperti penulisan karya sejarah. Kalau karya sejarah, penulisannya secara kaku, secara chronological order, ataupun sangat bersifat fakta semata-mata, tidak boleh menerokai unsur-unsur dalaman, tetapi sastra membenarkan kaedah meneroka jiwa, meneroka emosi, mimpi dan mereka-reka sedikit perkara yang tidak ada itu selagi tidak lari daripada jalur yang benar. Bukan sebagaimana benar sejarah tapi benar dari sudut sastranya itu. Sebagaimana kata Aristotle itu, kebenaran sejarah dan kebenaran sastra itu berbeza. Dan kebenaran sastra itu katanya lebih baik daripada kebenaran sejarah. Malah sejarah sebenarnya pun tidaklah sebenar-benarnya benar. Kerana ada banyak manipulasi fakta sejarah dalam pembinaan sesebuah naratif sejarah itu sendiri. Tidak ada sesuatu karya sejarah itu benar kalau ditulis oleh pihak musuh. Kalau nasionalis menulis sejarah, berbeza dengan kolonialis menulis sejarah tentang tanah Melayu misalnya. Ini sejarah pribumi atau sejarah yang ditulis oleh penjajah kolonial. Jadi di sinilah saya merangkumkan bahawa novel Debu Hiroshima ini sebuah teks remaja tetapi ada nilai yang tersendiri yang perlu juga dibaca oleh pembaca dewasa. Dan sebaik-baiknya novel ini dikembangkan menjadi novel dewasa dengan kaedah yang lebih matang dan kaedah yang lebih kritis dan nilai sastranya dipertingkatkan. Sekian, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih Dr. Saleh. Saya gembira duduk panel ni ikut waktu, dia tak ambil lebih daripada yang sepatutnya. Dr. Saleh ni sebenarnya pakar dalam bidang oksidentalisme. Buku beliau, Oksidentalisme, apa tajuk bawah dia tu? Dari era Mahathir hingga dari era sebelum mereka sehingga era Mahathir, selepas Mahathir. Era Mahathir, waktu dia cakap kat Dr. Mahathir, dia bagi buku tu, Dr. Mahathir sebut kat dia, era saya belum habis lagi. Dan itu ternyata benar. Ini cerita betul di ITBI waktu tu. Buku tu, ini saya nak galakkan pensyarah kat sini lah, adalah daripada tesis Dr. Saleh, jadikan buku. Dan buku tu menang paling banyak hadiah. Berapa puluh ribu? 50,000 akademik negara dan yang lain-lain lah. Rasa kat 100,000 juga kan. Kelebih sikit. 70,000. Buku tu menang RM70,000. Bayangkan. Saya nak bagi galakkan lah. Siapa-siapa yang ada buku nak boleh tesis boleh jadikan buku dan boleh menang. Dan Saudara Faizal pun dia buat buku yang orang lain tak buat. Sains lah. 1, sains lah 2. Orang-orang muda tak suka sains. Dan Saudara Faizal buat, kumpulkan artikel, jadikan buku Sains lah 1 dan Sains lah 2, di mana tokoh-tokoh sains menulis, menggalakkan orang mengenali sains. Kegembiraan saya di sini ialah sebagai pengarah MBKM, saya melihat bahawa dua-dua buku ni adalah buku usaha sama. Debu Hiroshima, DBP dan juga UIA kerjasama, dan Sains untuk manusia ni dia sama daripada majalah Sains dan UIA. Saya fikir ini yang patut kita galakkan dalam dunia penerbitan. Dan sekarang saya buka kalau ada apa-apa soalan. Tak perlu saya tanya. Kita ada lebih kurang 15 minit untuk siapa-siapa nak tanya soalan tentang dua buku ni. Silakan. Ada nak tanya? Kalau tak boleh jawab, penulis ada kat sini, dia jawab sendiri. Okey. Ada apa-apa siapa-siapa nak tanya? Belum baca? Okey. Kalau tak ada yang tanya, saya kena tanya. Itu tugas saya kan? Okey. Saya nak tanya Saudara Faizal. Saya melihat kerangka penulisan Tan Sri Zul ni dia agak menongkah arus sikit. Dia memberikan gambaran yang agak lain daripada apa yang kita fikirkan. Sebab bila kita kata IR 4 ni, almost all people embrace it. Semua orang, oh yeah, this is the time, kita gunakan big data, that's how we should move on. Tidakkah tulisan sebegini merencatkan apa yang orang lain rancangkan? Silakan.
Okay, terima kasih. Sebenarnya jawapan ni yang paling sesuai dijawab oleh penulis sendiri. Tapi saya bagi gambaran umum, secara umum dan secara boleh dikatakan orang yang mengamalkan sains lah. Saya kira saya seorang yang pengamal sains. Okey, begini pendapat saya. IR4 ataupun apa segala bidang nanoteknologi ke quantum mechanics, apa semua fizik semua, itu adalah perjalanan satu kemajuan ilmu pengetahuan. Apa yang sebenarnya diperlukan oleh masyarakat ataupun kita di negara dunia ketiga ni, berhati-hati. Tidak boleh terlalu seronok, terlalu gembira mengambil apa semua daripada istilah-istilah ataupun konsep-konsep daripada barat secara membuta tuli. Jadi di situlah sebenarnya apa yang kita maksudkan sebagai, juga ditulis oleh Tan Sri, ialah memasyarakatkan sains. Ataupun kami istilahkan sebagai sains untuk masyarakat. Maksudnya, masyarakat itu sendiri melihat sesuatu itu secara kritis. Apa yang dibawa, apa yang ditunjukkan oleh orang-orang luar ataupun bacaan-bacaan kita daripada barat apa semua, mesti dinilai dan diwacanakan dengan meluas supaya semua orang dapat membezakan antara baik dan buruk. Itulah sifat yang saya rasa itulah kemuncak kepada kemanusiaan itu sendiri. Satu lagi, apabila disebut IR4 ini, semua orang mengambil embrace, meraihkan tanpa berfikir ini. Saya rujuk kembali pada, saya baca buku ini bertepatan juga dengan saya punya pandangan. Sains di dalam masyarakat kita belum begitu meluas, belum sampai kepada masyarakat sebenarnya. Sebab itulah kita selalu tengok, terbaca orang-orang tertipu dengan yang dinamakan sains tipu ataupun pseudoscience. Pseudoscience. Ya. Air ajaib daripada mana datang, mengubat kanser, anti vaksin, golongan bumi rata. Begitu ramai di Malaysia. Saya kira ini kegagalan orang-orang sains memasyarakatkan sains. Jadi datanglah IR4. Hampir semua orang akademik ke apa semua mengambil itu tanpa mengulas dengan lebih teliti. Jadi saya tengok antara pemikir, antara golongan-golongan tokoh yang melihat benda ini dengan serius ialah Tan Sri.
So bagaimana nak menginsankan IL4 ni?
Itu
kita tanya soalan kan, bagaimana
menginsankan itu? Kalau untuk saya, mesti ada kesedaran kita sebagai seorang manusia menerima sesuatu. Itulah sifat penginsanan. Kita tak boleh paksa orang supaya menerima sesuatu itu dengan contoh pertanyaan menginsankan. Menginsankan teknologi ini sebenarnya untuk saya tak boleh pun. Menginsankan teknologi di atas kesedaran sifat kita sebagai seorang manusia. Itulah yang melalui tulisan Tan Sri ini kita lihat pemikiran-pemikiran daripada ini perlu dilihat secara lebih ilmiah ataupun mendalam begitu.
Ya, teknologi itu alat kan?
Alat. Ya.
Macam mana alat nak jadi insan kan? Okey. Mungkin salah soalan tadi. Dr. Saleh. Okey, Dr. Saleh sebut bahawa kena ada lepas ni kalau boleh buku yang lebih dewasa, dengan mengatakan sedikit ada mungkin ruang-ruang untuk kita perbaiki yang ni. Jadi kalaulah ada penulis dewasa yang kat sini nak buat, apa nasihat Dr. Saleh untuk mendewasakan buku ni? Atau Dr. Saleh nak tulis sendiri? First novel kan?
Okay. Saya panel hakim je.
Okey.
Novel dewasa ni berbeza daripada novel remaja. Ya. Novel remaja ni paparannya sangat surface lah. Dia tidak pergi ke dalam, in depth. Tidak pergi menjiwai watak-watak itu, tidak memasukkan unsur kontradiksi antara dua unsur yang bertentangan secara jelas, yang kritis, tetapi menghala kepada satu arah supaya pembaca remaja tidak terkeliru dengan ajaran yang hendak disampaikan. Manakala novel dewasa ini lebih terbuka, meminta pembaca lebih dewasa dalam pemikiran dan mencari nilai yang tersembunyi. Temanya tidak boleh secara jelas. Ini perbezaan. Maka perbezaan itu perlu diwujudkan dengan pemahaman tentang kaedah sastra itu. Ya, ini perlu dipelajarilah bagaimana kita nak melihat sebuah karya yang watak tak banyak pun ya kalau dalam sastra ni, tapi pendalamannya itu yang penting. Tapi itu satu hal lah saya nak cakap, saya takut terlupa. Saya nak cakap satu perkara, saya mendoakan Tan Sri Zul jadi VC kat UM lah. Sebab dia
mana boleh pitching kat luar-luar depan kat UIA ni?
Dia kan.
Ramah orang UIA marah ni.
Tak, dia selepas USIM dia pergi UM pula. Okey, semua.
Yalah, Tan Sri Zul ni beza sikit. Universiti Sains, dia Islamkan sains kat USIM, dia datang UIA. Tahulah Tan Sri. Semua orang minat Tan Sri ni bahaya ni. Okey. Kita ada lagi 8 minit. Yang lain tak nak soalan? Saya buka siapa-siapa yang ada soalan. Sila, ada 2 orang kat belakang tu. Kita bagi yang belakang tu, Saudara Nasir. Yang tak Islam okey, joke. Ni joke Sains Islam Malaysia yang Sains Malaysia. Okey. Okey, nanti dulu. Saya kumpul satu lagi soalan. Ada 2, Haji Hassan. Haji Hassan ni tiba-tiba dulu sebelum PKP handsome, sekarang janggut punya tu. Tak kenal je. Sila. Kalau Yayasan beli 1001 jodol bagus juga. Okey, silakan. Okey, terima kasih. Datuk Go.
Okey, saya Go dari Pusat Kebudayaan Malaysia.
Bukan lembaga pengelola DPP. Okey. Nak tanya wakil mana tu? Okey.
Saya tidak buat apa-apa komen sebab saya tak pernah baca 2 buku ini. Saya cuma mau buat cadangan.
Yayasan boleh beli dah agak.
Saya mau buat cadangan. Tadi saya sudah dengar ini cerita yang ditulis oleh novel ini Osman Putih, kawan saya lah. Sayangnya dia meninggal awal. Dia pernah cakap dengan saya, dia seorang penulis yang mendapat royalti yang paling banyak. Saya fikir dalam dunia industri. Dan buku ini walaupun saya belum baca, tapi sebabnya ceritanya benar. Ini cerita bapa Arham Tan Sri yang pernah mengalami pengalaman semasa tahun 1945 bom di Hiroshima. Seperti ini saya buat cadangan ini boleh jadi satu drama teater.
Okey.
Menarik sekali saya fikir.
Okey.
Itu cadangan saya.
Okey.
Saya
Nanti kita sama-sama cari duit, kita buat drama. Okey.
ada drama saya beri sokongan yang sepenuhnya.
Datuk, sokong dengan duit bukan dengan mulut je. Okey, thank you.
Kalau mau buat serba sedikit lah.
Okey, dengar tu ada komitmen dari Tan Sri.
Saya fikir ini sangat menarik.
Tak, Datuk kena ingat tau, ini masuk live FB tau. Dia akan sampai tau. Okey.
Kalau betul-betul kita mau buat teater, saya fikir kita boleh carilah orang yang berjayakan, yang sangat menarik lah. Saya fikir
Okey.
ceritanya.
Okey. Okey. Terima kasih. Okey. Kita tinggal 4 minit. Saya serahkan Saudara Faisal 2 minit dan untuk saya 2 minit untuk jawab soalan dan juga buat rangkuman apa yang kita ada ini.
Okey, saya jawab soalan Cik Nasir belakang. Sebenarnya memang satu masa dulu saya mengikuti arus sains. Saya pernah menjadi penulis untuk beberapa majalah juga terbitan. Tapi makin lama makin menurun. Yang tinggal sekarang ni yang majalah bercetak itu hanyalah Dewan Kosmik. Okey. Dia sebenarnya ada dua isu di sini. Satu kemeriahan lah saya panggil. Kemeriahan dunia internet ini sendiri, dunia online. Sekarang bila majalah bercetak itu agak sukar diperolehi. Jadi maka putuslah arus sains pun semua hilang. Satu lagi, yang kedua ialah minat. Minat orang itu sendiri hilang apabila sains itu diperkenalkan diperkenalkan di peringkat sekolah di dalam bahasa Inggeris. Itu menurut kajian itu telah dibukukan juga. Penurunan minat sains dan matematik di kalangan rakyat Malaysia ini mula berlaku apabila sains itu diperkenalkan dalam bahasa Inggeris. Jadi bila orang tak minat, orang pun tidak menerbit. Kami mengambil peluang ini untuk dikira sebagai perjuangan kami jugalah untuk meningkatkan kembali minat orang, minat masyarakat, minat kanak-kanak, minat orang dewasa dalam sains dalam bahasa Melayu. Itu.
Okay. Terima kasih. Betul. Dia belajar sains dalam bahasa Melayu daripada UKM. Sekarang dia perjuangkan. Dr. Saleh, dia sebut pula pasal sains bahasa Inggeris ni. Tak, ini bukan soalan. Jangan komen yang tu.
Tak boleh komen.
Buat conclusion yang ni.
Baru nak cakap yang itu.
Okey, silakan.
Saranan saudara Tuan Haji Hassan tadi untuk diangkat sebagai karya agung, saya fikir itu belum sampailah. Ya, sebab karya agung ni, great works ini satu karya yang ada ciri-ciri yang tersendiri, iaitu dia berjaya mengubah mindscape masyarakat pada zaman tertentu dan bersifat tahan di uji zaman dan sebagainya lah. Tetapi untuk bacaan remaja ini sangat baik dan orang dewasa perlu membaca kalau kita nak tahu. Jadi kesimpulan saya, novel sebegini perlu diperluas cakupannya sebagaimana Datuk Goh kata, buat drama ke, buat teater ke, atau di sekolah-sekolah pun boleh dijadikan satu bahan untuk dijadikan asas kepada skrip teater dan dilakonkan supaya yang dibawa ideologinya itu yang dapat kita angkat. Sebenarnya karya sastra ni kuat kerana ideologi, bukan kerana bentuk, bukan kerana form, tapi kerana konten. Kan konten itulah ideologi. Ini yang banyak dilupakan oleh penulis. Karya hanya bercerita, tapi ideologinya itu kontang. Jadi itu perlu diberi perhatian oleh semua penulis, bukan hanya Debu Hiroshima.
Okey, terima kasih. Saya ucapkan tahniah kepada UIA buat program macam ni. Bukan sebab nak panggil saya jadi moderator, tapi kembali ke UIA sentiasa membahagiakan saya. Sebab saya graduan UIA batch keempat. Nak sebutkan Tan Sri lah kan. Kerja kat UIA pun 17 tahun. Dan Alhamdulillah dapat balik kat sini is always a great honor to me. Terima kasih sebab saya fikir program segini patut kita perluaskan dan kerjasama macam ni patut kita teruskan. Sebab pada saya industri perbukuan perlu dilanjutkan, diperkuatkan, diperkukuhkan supaya anak bangsa kita tahu kita ada ketamadunan yang patut kita jaga. Terima kasih kepada dua ahli panel, terima kasih kepada penganjur. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Sekarang tepat 11.20 pagi.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you all panelists and moderator, and please remain on the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, as our gratitude for all panelists and moderator, I now would like to invite His Excellency Hiroshi Oka, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary Embassy of Japan, accompanied by Yang Berbahagia Dr. Rosfa Hashim, Director IOM Press and Honorable Writer, to present a token of appreciation to the panelists. First, please welcome Dr. Muhammad Saleh Rahmat from UM. Next, please welcome Encik Muhammad Faisal Aziz from editor majalah-science.com. Last but not least to the forum's moderator yang berbahagia Encik Muhammad Khair Ngadirun. Thank you, gentlemen, and I request His Excellency Hiroshi Oka to directly to the rostrum to deliver his speech on Hiroshima and Nagasaki 75 years later. Please welcome.
Well, thank you very much indeed for the inviting us. But first of all, Yang Berbahagia Professor Emeritus Tan Sri Dato' Zulkifli Abdul Razak, Rector International Islamic University Malaysia. Yang Berbahagia Dr. Rusfa Hashim, the Director IIUM Press. And Yang Berbahagia Puan Fadila Uthman, daughter of Marhum Osman Pote. And distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen. شكرا جزيلا على هذه الفرصة لزيارة هذه الجامعة. هذه هي أول مرة أقوم بزيارة هذه الجامعة الجميلة. Well, let me switch to easiest the language because of the shortage of time. Well, first of all, on behalf of the government, I'm pleased to attend this launching ceremony. And since November, I'm here in Malaysia, but I very much impressed by the very successful measures by the government and the people working together to contain that virus. The very effective measures, transparent measures, which were supported by unity and self-discipline of the Malaysian people, is something which this world very much recognize and praise. 75 years ago today, an atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, where more than 100,000 precious lives have been perished. And Hiroshima itself has been reduced to ashes in an instant. And just 3 days after, on August 9th, 1945, another bomb dropped on Nagasaki, which claimed approximately 70,000 lives in a just short space of time. In this devastation, even those who narrowly escaped had to experience unbearable hardships due to the tragic loss of their homes and their loved ones. Their painful suffering was beyond our imaginations. Whereas the precious role plays by the book, because of course this is not about conveying the factual account of what took place, but at least this book, although this might not be a book for the very much highly sophisticated one, but conveys the feelings and the sufferings, what people had thought about on that very day. So we very much like to appreciate the English version is going to be launched to be made available for those people all across the globe, even at the early age, so that the unique, although painful experience is going to be shared by all the people in this world. And perhaps the movie making might be also given easy access to the experiences. The lessons we learned is that the devastating experience should not be repeated in this age. So Japan is working hard as a peace-loving nation after the war to make whatever things it can to make this world safer and more prosperous. For instance, we participated in what we called peacekeeping operations around the globe. Not even a single shot was fired by participating Japanese officers. And for the development, because poverty is kind of the fundamental issues for us to address for the stability and the peace in the world, we have been actively working for what we call the development assistance to make the people in the world enjoy the happy life. And of course, the international regimes to contain the nuclear weapons, NPT, was signed and we are advocating for the full compliance by all the members of this NPT treaty. And we have all the three principles as regards no nuclear principles. We will continue to abide by this principle. And then the father of Tan Sri Dato Zulkifli Marhum Dato Abdul Razak was the main character of this book. And he was the Malaysians, the sole survivor from this Hiroshima, the bombing during the war. He was just 20, learning eagerly the Japanese language, and very promising student selected at the time to pursue the interest for language. And after surviving the aftermath of the atomic bombing, in spite of the enormous suffering what he had to undergo in Hiroshima, he continued to develop and follow through the personal interest in Japanese language and education, and to advocate the importance of Oriental values and ethics, and position himself in a new set of academic frameworks in Malaysian universities. For his lifelong dedications for promoting Japanese language and the educations in general, he was nominated by Tun Mahathir Mohamad to lead the Lukis policy programs when he launched the 1981 Lukis policies. And this Lukis policy obviously forged very strong the basis for the lasting friendship between Japan and Malaysia. So we are very much grateful for the Marhum Dato Abdul Razak for the laying foundations for the lasting friendship which we are enjoying today between Japan and Malaysia. We are profoundly grateful for his leading role. With his very much, although I haven't been able to see him in person, unfortunately, but with his very much witty, charming character, always neatly dressed in a flawless, impeccable appearance, straightening up his back, holding his head high, the Razak Sensei, the teacher Razak, as many of his students remembered him by, he embodied and represented the perfect mixture of the traditional Malay custom with the spirit of the Japanese, never give in, never give up in whatever hardships. And of course, much like his late father, Tan Sri Dato Zulkifli, has been very much involved in promoting Japan and Malaysia relations in the field of the higher educations. We are very much fortunate to have such a high caliber persons with us for the promoting friendship Japan and Malaysia. He has been building networks between Malaysian Japanese universities under his leadership as Vice Chancellor of the University of Science Malaysia. And he made a great effort to establish the Japanese Language and Culture Center at the University of Science Islam Malaysia, which was launched in March 2017 during the 60th anniversary celebrations of Japan-Malaysia diplomatic relations. And finally, Tan Sri Dato has been contributing to the development of Japanese Education Institute, the Pusat Bahasa Teikyo, which is now one of the leading essential gateways for young aspiring Malaysians aiming to study in Japan. For his remarkable contributions, decorations by the Emperor of the Order of the Rising Sun Gold Race with neck ribbon was presented to him 2019, last year. We thank you for his enormous contribution. In recognition of the very much the precious role played by this university, the Japanese in the field of the Japanese language educations, the Japanese government presented last year a fully refurbished Kuliah with the state-of-the-art equipment which provides students not only within the IIUM but also the students learning in the vicinity of the university with the facilities, convenient access to online resources, sound systems, as well as some Japanese learning materials, so that we can further promote Japanese learnings by in and around the IIUM. I myself was very much fortunate to witness and attend the opening ceremony which took place December last year, and I'm convinced that these modern classrooms and facilities will further enhance the IIUM students, the learning experience of Japanese language and culture. And I'm happy to learn today that as many as 13 Japanese students are learning IIUM. So this is a kind of the symbol or mecca of the mixture of the Japanese and the Malaysian students. Of course, language is the key to understand the culture and the people of different societies, but at the same time, perhaps the science and the engineers and technologies will be also a key for us to have a better future. Lucky's policy put an emphasis on both the educations and science and technologies. And as many as so far, since this Lucky's policy was launched in 1981, 17,000 Malaysians, the promising youth, came to Japan either pursuing higher study or the receiving trainings. They are the kind of unique strength given by their presence to the Japan-Malaysian relations. We don't have with any other countries such a unique presence. As many as 17,000 Malaysians here for having a very much the fond memories of their spending and learning in Japan. Their presence is a very much precious the values and the fundamental basis and partners for us. Well, of course, we very much congratulate and celebrate the launch of this science book, launched by Tan Sri, but we are looking forward to have it translated into Japanese so that we can learn your very much interested views and perspective about the science. Japan, ever since the turn of the century, has produced the second largest number of the Nobel winners after the United States. So we are looking forward to share the experience and expertise with friendly countries, with Malaysia. Now, the Lucky's policy, which traditionally has focused on the education and language, now expanded its scope. Now we enter into Lucky's policy 2.0, the second phase of the Lucky's policy. Now that encompasses like the life innovations, green innovation technologies within the scope of this Lucky's policies. And it's very well known that the Malaysian government is promoting sophisticated science and technologies in the form of the industry forward policies. On our part, we are promoting what we call the fifth Science and Technology Basic Plan, Society 5.0. So we foresee lots of the commonality of interest, the grounds we can share in the field of science and technologies. So this is perhaps a new areas for us to cultivate, because we are going to celebrate next year the 40th anniversary since Lucky's policy launched. So when we celebrate all the achievements which we have done so far, but at the same time we will look forward to expanding the scope of the cooperations between Japan and Malaysia under the Lucky's policies. Well, they conclude. We very much like to congratulate the launch of this very much important books on these occasions. And on my part, we continue to willing to work for the strengthen the bilateral relations between Japan and Malaysia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, His Excellency Hiroshi Oka, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary Embassy of Japan. As our gratitude, I would like to invite Honorable Tan Sri Zulkifli Abdul Razak to present a token of appreciation to His Excellency Hiroshi Oka, accompanied by Dr. Rosfa. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let's move to our next agenda. I have the pleasure to invite Honorable Professor Emeritus Tan Sri Datuk Zulkifli Abdul Razak, Rector of IIUM, to deliver his officiating speech on exhibition on book writing and publishing, the collection of Rosfa Hashim. Please welcome.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu syafil anbiya mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. La haula wala quwwata illa billah. Yang dimuliakan saudara penghormati majlis, His Excellency Hiroshi Oka, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary Embassy of Japan, yang berbahagia Michael, thank you for coming. President of Soka Gakkai Malaysia, Puan Fazilah Osman, colleagues, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen. Let me first of all thank all of you for being here. It is a rather very extraordinary time to speak to people with all their mouths closed. Never happened before. But nevertheless, I think this is a very important occasion as far as I'm concerned. I've got a nice speech here to read, but because of the discussion that's been going on, I thought I would just leave the speech alone, thanks to the speechwriter. There are many things that I think that needs to be said, why we have this and why the books. And it looks like a very personal thing, me and my father and my books and so on and so forth. Let me distance myself from this, just to give you the kind of thing that I have gone through, looking at my father as a sensei, as a teacher, rather than a father per se. Yeah? Since the age of 10, I've been listening to him, his Hiroshima experience, how things has happened. At the age of 10, it is a very young age to understand what is this disaster that involves a bomb. I mean, when you're young, you like bombs, you like weapons, you like killing people, because that, quote unquote, was an heroic act. Yeah, you just ask any youngsters, they want to be, cowboys. They want to shoot somebody else. This is the kind of mindset that was built. But my father destroyed all those. My father tells me is that at the end of the day, what happened is the question of values that you have to hold. And this is where I think the Japanese culture comes in. It is not just Japanese per se. I think it's a value that the Japanese brought into my father's life, right? And he abhor aggression, abhor conflict. He doesn't like even shouting. He never raised his voice. As far as I can remember, he never even beat me. If he wants to beat me, he will outsource it to my mother. My mother will do the beating. He will not even touch me, as far as I can remember, even until now. So that's the kind of value that it holds, as far as peace, as far as affection, as far as love is concerned. And that's the value that I think we try to inculcate in the world today. We have lost so much about it. And why the Japanese inherit this is something, again, that my father teach me, that they were trained at a very young age of 3, before even they go to school, before they learn ABC, before they count 1, 2, 3, they are embedded with these values of all the things that needs to make them, quote unquote, the human being with that value. And these, I think, why we are trying to emulate now to make it happen. It is not rocket science. It is something about willingness and wanting to do it. And particularly in this University of International Islamic University, I think these are the options that is up to us to pick and to make it happen within our university. We've got our own tariqah, we've got our preschool. Why can't we do this the way it was done? And it is something which is tried and error. The bomb just kind of confirmed whatever he's been telling us, or what he's been telling me, that, unless and until you have this value, not only in action, but in thoughts. He said hatred starts from thinking. If you think hatred, then I think your expression will be hatred. And you see this all the time in your social media, in the talks that we see around us, that people express this without realizing that it has built it in their thoughts. So to clean the thoughts process is an important thing to do. Right? That is one question that I think I probably will want to explain to you. The second thing is about science. I'm a science student. And this thing, that exposure that my father gave me before I was even a science student at Form 3, which is maybe about 15 years old. For that 5 years experience, every August 6, we will be sitting around him and he will tell the story again. And with tears coming from his eyes. It is very much something that affects him for a long time. Now, when I become a science student, I learned science is about balance. Important things about science is how to arrive at a balance. But I think somehow or other, my science has lost its balance. We do not talk about the human value. We talk about technological value, we talk about machine value, but we don't talk about human value. The human value is lost. And this is where I think humanities and social science needs to come back to balance what science is all about. So when I know a little bit of science and I learn, Einstein was involved in the making of the atomic bomb. Oppenheimer was involved in making the atomic bombs. These are big names in science that we celebrate all the time. But how do people like Einstein, the genius he is, or he was, being able to be seduced to make a bomb that kills innocent people in the hundreds of thousands? What sort of scientist is this? What sort of genius is this? Those are the questions that becomes important to my mind. And finally, Einstein wrote a statement before he passed away. He says, I regret very much writing the letter to the President of America at that particular time, suggesting what we call now the atomic bomb. So in other words, the moment you lose the balance of what knowledge is all about, doesn't matter what knowledge it is, you are going to destroy rather than to build. And that's why I wrote this book on science and manusia, science and men, because at the end of the day, the question that we need to ask, do science serve human being? Or do science destroy human being? So the 4IR, and I think Excellency has just spoken, the Japanese do not talk about 4IR per se. The Japanese talk about Society 5.0. And Society 5.0, if you read, is all about human values. It's all about bringing science to make human being a better sort of civilization, rather than just us talking about 4IR, making machines working for us or we working for the machines. I'm not too sure. That's a debate that do not happen in our society. When 2016, when the 4IR was announced at the World Economic Forum by a group of industrialists, the United Nations also announced in 2016 in New York what we call the Sustainable Development Goal. But Sustainable Development Goal wasn't taken up by any government the way it is taken up by the Japanese. Yeah, I think this university knows sustainable development quite recently, right? Why is it that we picked up 4IR so easily? Why didn't we pick up sustainable development, which is humanistic in its goal? Talk about peace, talk about partnership, talk about saving the planet, talk about equal prosperity, and talks about how human beings can live together, does not, excite us as a university that talks about knowledge, virtues, and so on and so forth. Where have we lost this balance? I think our work in this university is to bring that balance. I'm not saying that 4IR is not good, but I'm saying that 4IR needs to be balanced. Because there was one subject that we have not touched, is called the singularity. The singularity is defined when human intelligence is superseded by the artificial intelligence. And it is said to be somewhere in the year 2030 or 2050. And when that happens, we will create another breed called the transhuman. And we do not know what the transhuman is all about. But if you read the discourse of the transhuman in the internet, it talks about they themselves embedded with all the technology, and they claim they are more powerful than God. That's a discussion that we do not have. It is 10 years from now, if this transhuman is going to be happening, it's 10 years from now, where is this discussion about this transhumanists? It could be you, it could be me, it could be our children, it could be the generation of the future. How do you deal with this group of people? How do you deal with the post-human sort of era? These are big questions that the university must ask. University is not a school that just takes instruction from whoever else, but we need to ask questions so that we arrive at the balance that we need as far as university and knowledge is concerned to preserve human being. And that's the purpose of knowledge. So these are all the issues that is now coming around us that we do not either entertain or we just throw it away because somebody so said it is not important for us to actually dwell on it. I hope this university come around and understand what university is all about, what knowledge is all about, what's the purpose of science, and then try to make it up. And I think there is enough example when we look at Japan. Yeah, I'm not saying this because the ambassador is here. For a long time, there has been the dedication, to the extent that we even invite Dr. Miyagawa, who is a former ambassador, to be our board members. Right? And we were asked, why do you invite a non-Muslim into our board members? And our answer was very equivocal. He says, because in Japan, you can find Islam. And nobody can dispute that. Yeah? In the Muslim countries, sometimes you can't find Islam. You can find Muslims, but they probably know Islam there. Right? And I think these are issues that is important to us as an Islamic university to set our bearing right, to move forward, and to find where this university is situated in the world that is uncertain now. Yeah? We talk about the atomic bomb. It is almost, to me, like what the COVID-19 is all about. We do not know what COVID-19 is all about, as much as the people in Hiroshima at that time do not know what the bomb is all about. My father used to experience the siren all the time. He says, when the first siren comes in, everybody run under the bomb shelter. And then the second siren will sound, and means the aeroplane has gone, then they move out of the bomb shelter, and they go back to do whatever they want to do. Not when the atomic bomb comes in. The first siren, they went in, and then the aeroplane went out, the second siren was sounded, the bomb has not exploded. When they went out of the shelter, the bomb exploded mid-air. And that's why thousands of them were killed at one point. And it was a deceit. It was a kind of a innovation, quote unquote, at that time, to kill more people. And this is what the whole value that needs to be asked again, whether we should allow this kind of innovation to pervade science and technology so that at the end of the day, a lot more people, will survive in many things. I will talk about this again tonight when this dialogues sejahtera with Syed Munawar to analyze what the atomic bomb is all about and how do you arrive sejahtera at the end of the day. Time is not permitting, but I'm very. I think it is a very important point to be labeled so that we as a university understand what it's all about. But let me conclude by thanking all the organizers for organizing such a valuable session, talking about knowledge, talking about values, talking about books. Yeah? And I'd like to especially applaud the ambassador. I'm sure he's very busy, but make time to be with us. We want to keep a close rapport. I'm very thankful for the PAGO initiative, and I hope PAGO will be another center of the Japanese, not only language, but also culture. Sometimes we speak Japanese very well, but we are still late for our appointments. So it's not the language per se, it's the culture at the same time. Yeah? The Japanese will be here 15 minutes before the occasion starts. Yeah? Malaysian will be 15 minutes after the occasion starts. I think that's a big difference. It's not the language, it is the culture. And I think we need to live by this culture so that we can be better people, so that we can have better life, so can we also have a better world at the same time. So let me thank you. Sorry for this very impromptu, very abrupt sort of speech, but I've been sitting there listening, and I don't want to make this into a personal thing. It's my father's book, Alhamdulillah. It's my book, Alhamdulillah, but it's nothing to do with us. Yeah, it's a value that we want to propagate so that you understand the value. And Dato' Goh, thank you very much for this suggestion. I'll try to mobilize the IUM people to do the drama, maybe at a low cost, so that we can also demonstrate that we are into promoting this in a very positive way, inshallah. So thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh, and terima kasih.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Actually, I would like to request Honorable Rector to remain standing in front of the stage for our next agenda, which is for the video presentation of today's event, for the book launching and the exhibition on book writing and publishing the collection of Rosfa Hashim. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as our respect and gratitude to our invited guests of honor for their efforts and contribution, I would like to invite Dr. Rosfa Hashim, Director, IIUM Press, to accompany Tan Sri Rector of IIUM to present a token of appreciation. First, please welcome Puan Fadila Osman, daughter of Almarhum Osman Putih, as an original author of the book entitled Debu Hiroshima. Next, please welcome Mr. Michael Fok On, President of Soka Gakkai Malaysia. Also a token as our respect and gratitude to the Honorable Professor Emeritus Tan Sri Datuk Zulkifli Abdul Razak, Rector of IIUM, which will be presented by Dr. Rosfa Hashim, Director of IIUM Press. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to invite all guests to join our honorable VIPs for a group photo session. Kita akan ada ramai-ramai dekat sini, fotografer akan ada kat atas. Okay. With social distancing. Berdiri. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, alhamdulillah, we have come to the end of this session. Our next session for the exhibition on book writing and publishing, the collection of Roswa Hashim, and there will be a at the level 2 inside this library building, and Honorable Rector will be with us for the autograph session and also for a lunch will be held inside the library, and I seek cooperation from all guests to give way first to our VIPs to move out from this hall to proceed to the exhibition area at level 2 Darul Hikmah Library. Mohon kerjasama tuan-tuan dan puan-puan untuk menjaga penjarakan sosial dan elak akan bersalaman. Please always keep your physical distancing throughout our program.